Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Hope. You have seen her here before if you've been around here for a while. But Hope Bolinger is a writer and a dear friend of mine, and we have some exciting news to share with you guys today and in future days, I suppose. But Hope has quite a few books coming out pretty soon here. Hope, would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on here again. Last time we were on here, we were talking about the first book that came out last summer, which is essentially a modern-day Daniel trilogy. And so for anyone who's familiar with the tale of Daniel, we kind of take them up to that fun, fiery furnace part. So coming in this month is the sequel, Den. And so as you can guess, a lion's den might be involved somewhere in the story. And then immediately after, like 5 weeks later, we have a superhero book coming out titled Dear Hero from Intense Publications. The sequel to that, Dear Henchman, comes out next year. And then the final book in the trilogy, Vision, is out next year. So we have a loaded schedule ahead.
You are a crazy, crazy busy person. Thank you for putting time on your schedule for this.
Oh yeah, no, I love this. I love this channel. This channel is amazing. You are amazing. I am always happy to be on this channel.
Alrighty, so let's see where to start. Let's talk about Den first, shall we? So it's the sequel to Blaze, and they're modern day retellings of Daniel and the Lion's Den, correct? And like the story of Daniel in general, right?
Yeah.
So Blaze, I actually have my copy of Blaze on my shelf too. But Blaze, it takes you all the way up to the fiery furnace. And then Den will go pretty much through, you said the lion's den is in there probably.
Yeah, so we pretty much take it up to the lion's den, and then that last book is all those fun trippy visions at the end. So that's fun to modernize.
That'll be interesting. I'm curious how you're gonna do the Lion's Den modernized. That I'm so curious. So curious, but I guess I'll just have to read it and find out. Unless you
I don't know how much I can spoil, but I can tell you that my high school that I went to, we had in the gym, it said basically like the den, because we had a lion mascot at my high school, so a lot of it had been inspired from actually my old high school. So there's a couple shout outs in the book to that little place in the bleachers.
That's fun. Alrighty. Cool. So when is the official release date that you know of for that one?
Yep, so Den comes out on July 27th. And then I know Dear Hero comes out on September 1st. And then I know that Dear Henchman comes out April of 2021. I don't know specifically when. And then Vision comes out August of 2021.
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, that's super fun. So, I mean, I know we've talked in the past, we talked a lot about your writing process and stuff for Blaze and Den and this trilogy that you're writing. But Dear Hero, it was written a little bit differently, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was actually co-authored. I don't know if Alyssa has ever been on this channel before. Alyssa wrote.
She has not yet, but I do intend on getting her on here sometime.
Yes, she is a hoot. Yeah, you need her on here. But she and we had this crazy idea that we basically would have a hero and a villain pair on essentially like a nemesis pairing site, kind of like Tinder, but to find your nemesis. So basically we hopped on a Google Doc, we chose our characters, and we improvised the whole book. So it was kind of like doing improv with another person while still trying to stick to a storyline and make sure to get all the subplots and everything in there. So that was a very different process. We wrote it in 9 days, which I do not recommend ever doing, especially like when you're working like 5 jobs that summer, but it happened. So yeah, that was a definitely very crazy process. So that, yeah, it's definitely different than my other processes because Alyssa is what's known as a pantser and I'm a plotter. And so we always like to
somewhere
talk
in the middle.
How the book stretched us because I'd never done that much pantsing. I'd never done that much improv in a book. And she was like, yeah, this was the most plotted book I've ever written. Yeah, it was a lot of fun though. We were just basically cracking jokes at like midnight. So that's basically the book. Is if you want to know what Hope is like when she's sleep deprived, read this book.
And as a typical planner, right? How did that process of pantsing, how did that feel? How did that go for you?
Oh, well, it was interesting because I mean, I think every writer kind of instinctually can feel when they're reaching the rising action, when they're reaching the climax, denouement, that sort of thing. So, I mean, you kind of just had to trust the process. I mean, I knew that Alyssa was a really good writer. Alyssa knew what she was doing. So you kind of just, it's a lot of trust. It's not like a marriage because I'm not married to Alyssa in any sense. But, I mean, you do kind of have to put that level of trust on the other person that, you know, you don't know what they're going to type next. You might think their character's going to say something, and then, you know, there's this one character in this book, Kevin, who is ridiculous, and he's hilarious, and he wasn't supposed to be that way. But then all of a sudden, like, as soon as, like, we introduced Kevin, Alyssa's character said, "Is he wearing a fish costume?" I'm like, all right, I guess we define who Kevin is now. So we know now we know what Kevin's like. A certain villain turned out to be a villain in the book that we didn't anticipate. So I was like, all right, we got to roll with this. So you just kind of, it's kind of like improv if you've ever done it on stage. You just got to roll with whatever the person just said. And now that is what is happening in the book.
Yep. Everything almost instantly becomes canon, and making it uncanonized is really hard.
For sure. I mean, and we did definitely, like, the nice thing about writing it with another person is we're able to keep track of things that would be contradictory. Mm-hmm. So I might type something and then Alyssa said, wait a second, back, you know, a couple entries ago, they said this, so this wouldn't work out. So we did make sure that it actually worked. So we did have an editor kind of in the other person as we were going along. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it became canon really quickly. So we're like, all right, this is how this works now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a pantser in my first draft attempts, usually. The series that I'm currently working on is very different in that I actually do have a plot and an outline, and I'm doing my best to stick to it because it's a series, and I'm like, okay, we have to actually get all of these things in here, or everything that I want to happen in book 4 cannot happen, right? Because it won't make sense if this didn't happen in book 2, as series do, right? Mm-hmm. But usually when I sit down to write something first draft, it is entirely just me and that blank piece of paper, and I'm like, let's see where I go, and I have this image of this character, and I'm going to start throwing things at them and see how they respond. But yeah, in the editing process then, I always find myself being like, but if I take it out, it won't be canon anymore, and I love it as canon. Anyway, all that to say, so Dear Hero, it's also, rather than just being a completely different genre than what you've written in the past, it's also a completely different type of writing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of like playwriting without stage direction. So, I mean, we have things like, we try to like mimic sound effects and onomatopoeia in there. So, you know, there's sometimes voice to text happening where, you know, if they're like sneaking into a house to save a citizen or something, you know, you might like get like them punching someone or, you know, something exploding in the background. But yeah, for the most part, it's dialogue. So, I mean, I'm a playwright at heart, so this is actually my jam. I love dialogue. And we actually had some people who endorsed it who were surprised. They're like, you know, I didn't think I was going to like it because it was all just talking, but they said it ended up working. What's really cool is actually chat fiction is becoming really popular. There's a famous storytelling app known as Hooked, where everything is told through like FaceTime or everything's over text message. Like it's all dialogue. So it's becoming like a new thing right now, especially in publishing.
Nice. Interesting. How does that, so as a more traditional writer, right, how do you go about giving the entire plot without those action sequences, especially in a superhero genre?
Right. I mean, like a lot of character commentary is happening. I mean, in a lot of superhero movies, people are commenting already in the fight scene about different stuff. So, I mean, we have sidekicks in there who are just kind of giving like a play-by-play of what is happening, you know, especially Alyssa's villain character is very violent. So, you know, we're getting a play-by-play of her like pulling out all the knives and all that. So, yeah, I mean, you get like a play-by-play. There's like, you know, there'll be an onomatopoeia, and so it'll be like, what's that? And they'll be like, BJ just punch someone. And so that's kind of some ways we got around it. For the most part, though, it actually is pretty easy to tell a story through dialogue, because a lot of times exposition goes in dialogue. A lot of times dialogue is the driving force of a lot of stories. I love dialogue. I sometimes will skip entire descriptions when I'm reading because I just want to get to the dialogue.
I skip entire descriptions when I'm writing, so I feel that.
Same, though. I hate writing descriptions so much.
I often have to go back in and specifically, I mean, I write short, right? Like, I have written entire novels for Camp NaNoWriMo and NaNoWriMo in the past.
Right.
And how that works is I end up only, like, I get the entire plot in 40,000 words. And as a suspense novelist, my books are naturally shorter than most of my friends who write fantasy or science fiction. But 40,000 words is still too short. Not even a novella, right? And so... with that in mind, then usually when I go back and edit, I'm specifically looking for places where I inadvertently skipped descriptions and any exposition that happens, like, what does the setting even look like? I don't know. They're all just walking around in a blank world. Oops.
Oh my goodness. No, I relate to this so hard. Most of the time my first drafts are super short because I have to go back and add stuff. Which is funny because Alyssa is the opposite, which is funny when you bring two people together, because Alyssa has over 100,000 word books and then she scales it down. I usually start at like 60 or 70,000 and I have to like bump it up to like 80 or 90. So I totally get it.
Yeah. I literally, like, the first 2 weeks of NaNoWriMo usually are me getting the whole plot down, and then the next 2 weeks are me just reading through it eight different times, trying to find places to expand. And I'm like, I have to stop looking at this because I can't read it anymore.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, let's see. With the things that you write, do you have a message that you really want readers to take away from your books in general, your books in particular?
So it depends on which book, because every single book I usually do have at least something that is applicable to what teens are dealing with. Even Dear Hero is like a really silly book, where people are kind of poking fun half the time, but it is kind of a look into the scariness of entering the working world and how hard it is to get that like first internship. We kind of actually look, we've set up this world where like superheroes are kind of dime a dozen now, and that it's really hard to break in and become an A-list superhero. So people intern as like sidekicks and henchmen because they want to have an in the hero industry. So, I mean, every single book usually has something that teens can take away. I try not to be too preachy, though, because, you can always read, like, certain books, especially in the YA genre, where you're like, okay, like, this author had a message, and they are laying it down.
There it is.
Here it is. So, yeah, all the different books. Den kind of talks about like mental health a lot. Cyberbullying is a really big theme in Den. And Blaze is kind of talking about problems with the American school system and ways we need to fix it. So, all the books definitely do have at least some sort of takeaway, but I don't want it to distract from the main story, because also, as much as books are to instruct, they're also to entertain. So I want to kind of strike that balance. I don't want to be a preachy kind of writer, because then people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Hope, like, yes, we understand what you're getting at here. So yeah.
Is there anything else you really wanted to bring up or discuss, or anything else on your mind writerly that if you would share something with aspiring writers, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, definitely have patience, have persistence, and I mean, I may look like I am successful, but trust me, I have so many frustrations. Marketing is a headache and a half, and even after you get published, there are so many different hurdles you have to leap over. So just take it a step at a time. Know that it takes time, but know that your story is worth it, no matter if you sell, 1,000 copies or 10,000 copies. That your story is worth sharing with the world. So, just know it is a difficult process. Everyone in the writing community is here for you. Seriously, the writing community on Twitter is amazing. if you're not involved in that already, go with them. I'm sure the writing community on YouTube is also really great too. But yeah, get your encouragement that you can every single week from that community and just keep going.
Do you have any resources that you can think of off the top of your head? I know I'm springing this one on you. But do you have any resources that have helped you in marketing or helped you in like your favorite writing books or anything like that that you found helpful in your journey?
Oh yeah. I mean, let me think. I'm trying to think marketing and then also books. I liked, what was it? I think it was like Bird by Anne Lamott. That was a really good writing book. I've yet to read On Writing by Stephen King, but everyone says it's amazing. So of course I'm going to read that.
I read half of it so far, and then I had to return it to the library, so I didn't finish it. But I really enjoyed the part that I read. Still need to finish that book.
Yeah, no, I mean, I heard that one's really good. As far as marketing goes, it really depends. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. I'm still learning. I think consistency is key. I found a lot of really great resources on Serious Writer. They have a lot of marketing classes, anything from like BookBub ads to Facebook marketing. But yeah, I mean, if anything, I'd suggest joining the Serious Writer family on Facebook. It's a free community. They often have a lot of tips in terms of marketing. So you don't have to necessarily pay for classes. You just hop on there and they have free resources. So that one's great. I mean, I work for them, so of course I'm plugging them. But yeah, it's a matter of finding your niche in the writing community and finding what works for you marketing. Don't try to do everything because, you know, you're going to have people say, oh, yeah, you need a Pinterest, you need like a YouTube channel, you need Facebook. Like, find your core 3 social media that work the best for you and really focus on those because otherwise you're going to paint yourself way too thin for sure.
Yep, I know that feeling. And I do all sorts of things. And I found that I definitely have different focuses in different places. And like the things that I can run just automatically, like if I can schedule something to go for however long it's going, perfect, I'm there, right? So like, strangely enough, Tumblr right now is one of my favorite marketing tools in that way. Simply because you can load up a queue of posts. And it's like if you spend an hour once a month just loading it up with things and you have it post once a day, twice a day between these hours, because you can set those things, then it'll just automatically post to the next thing in the queue for the entire until it runs out of things in the queue.
Yeah.
And so that way it's constantly being active and it's constantly reaching new people. But it's very hands-off and it just does what it needs to do, and you can do whatever else you're doing in your life, which for me is a lot of things. There's lots of fun ways that you can go about marketing, and I think part of it is reaching out to people like this for interviews, part of it is reaching out to blogs, part of it is figuring out what you think is fun and going from there. Yeah. But I think, and again, to anybody who wants to be an author, like there are resources out there. There are books on writing, there are books on marketing, there are books on platform building. But even if you don't want to, like, you don't have access to the books or whatever, if you're watching this video, you have access to the internet. And there are lots of things on the internet that you can find. Hope, you have some resources that you put out, right? Like a newsletter and stuff.
Yeah, no, I do have a newsletter I put out, especially with publishing tips. I try to do it quarterly. I think I might up it. Then maybe I might do it every 2 months. I'm thinking about possibly doing that. But yeah, I do have publishing tips on there. I frequently post on my blog some publishing tips. I've been a little bit behind on that, but I will try to bring it up. The Serious Writer newsletter, I frequently will have a writer's block section because I understand writer's block. So I'll usually have a tip once a week on how to defeat that writer's block that you are dealing with. And then what other resources do I contribute to? I mean, I definitely suggest going to almostanauthor.com. I don't usually contribute articles to them, but they have lots of free resources on anything from marketing to genre-specific articles, to the querying trenches. They kind of have a catch-all for everything if you need to find it there. I think they're in like the top 100 Writer's Digest, like writing sites or something. I think they've gotten that 4 years in a row or something like that. So they're pretty high up there. But yeah, Yeah, I think those are just some of the resources. And then just you can find me on social media, like at Hope Bolinger. I try to have like a query tip once a week on Twitter, try to have a motivational post and a writer's block tip once a week too.
And all of the links to your social media will be down below as well.
Okay, awesome.
I'll put little links in the description for everybody. So if you want to find more about Hope, go check out her social media, go check out her website, subscribe to her newsletter and stuff like that. Be in the know. Because like we said, she has like 4 books coming out in the next year and a half. That's crazy. You're insane.
I know.
But it's awesome. So congratulations, first of all. Yeah, and I can't wait to read them. I can't wait to find them and get my hands on them. And yes. Anyway. Well, thanks for coming, Hope, and thanks for watching, all of you people. And this has been super fun. And I can't wait until we get to actually hold the books in our hands.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I always have fun on this channel, and thanks for having me here again.
Yeah. Alrighty. Until next time. We'll see you then.